Hello, and welcome back to Goalie Interference, presented by the Jimerson Law Firm. The one, the only Mike McKenna of Daily Faceoff is here. It has been a week, Mike. It has been.
Has it ever? Has it ever been the last 2.5 days?
Unbelievable. It has been something, and the deal is off, canceled, voided. I don't even concluded. There were so many different words in there. My thesaurus was going. I was like, this is quite the press release. I know people have been saying like, this has to get voided. This has to get voided. But the whole time my mind was kept telling me like, this doesn't happen. They don't mess this up. They don't void trades, but they did. Here we are.
Oh yeah.
It's voided.
Yeah, the whole time I was going, there's no way this is going to happen because there was just way too many things swirling. And I am utterly shocked at how this went down, but I'm not because it involves the Ottawa Senators, first off. But I don't think that there's just blame to be cast on one party here, but we don't know all the specifics and never really will unless it all gets leaked out somehow because the NHL's – I think it will. It always does.
Yep.
Because somebody's going to be really pissed about this, and rightfully so. And what I don't know here is, we have. I think the assumption is that some people got caught really off guard here, and I think Anaheim is going to be number one in that mix because there's no way Anaheim was trying to roll the dice here to magically get rid of Raquel and get Dadonov to kind of fill in for a year. Like, I think Anaheim really got screwed here.
I agree.
And I think Dadonov got screwed harder than anybody. And I got some people coming at me on Twitter going like, oh, I'll take $400,000 a month for that. Like, no, money doesn't fix this. The guy's looking at a scenario where he either one plays for the Golden Knights tomorrow night, apparently, and he has no motivation to play well whatsoever because he knows he's a dead man walking in Vegas. They don't want him. Or he gets dealt to a team that he can't play for. And what does that do for your career? Like, it's a terrible situation for Dadonov. He's totally screwed by this, and he did nothing wrong. And the Ottawa Senators clearly messed everything up in the initial process here. But like, can we really look at the Golden Knights and say, hands in the air, we didn't know? Like, that could have happened. But we can't say that without any transparency here. Like, we are free to assume that the Golden Knights tried to pull a fast one on the league here.
They have a history of doing things of this sort. Like there is a pattern here that leads you down that path. Like, I will stand by. I don't think they would do that because this can happen. If you're pulling a fast one, this can happen. And this is worst case scenario for the Golden Knights. They would not have banked their entire trade deadline on this possibility. So that's why I don't think that's what's happened.
I agree with you. I don't think that the Golden Knights were willfully thinking that this was gray area, that they might get caught. What I do think is that they saw in their eyes. Yes, correct. That's what, like, oh, wow, this guy didn't file in time. We're going to screw him. We're going to take advantage of this. I don't even know
that they knew that, to be completely honest. I think it's very possible up until what I am being told was somewhere in the ballpark of 11 o'clock on Monday. I don't even think they knew Anaheim would have ever been a consideration. Right. The guy used to have a 10-team trade clause, but why would Anaheim be on there? I don't think, like, then they learn, and now it's 11:15, and you're like, well, we got to push through this now. Like, I understand where they're coming from here, but there is an argument to be said. July 28th, you trade for the player. Why aren't you going to him right there?
Yeah. Well, first off, he's got the California teams on it because nobody hates escrow and taxation more than the Russians. I've been on an NHLPA call with Alex Ovechkin screaming about escrow. Like, this is, I can guarantee Dadonov's no trade list is probably all the Canadian teams in California. Ironically enough, and he signed it with a Canadian team in Ottawa.
Well, but that is your savior of, if I were to get traded this is only going to get better. I signed at a rate that I'm happy with in this tax bracket in Canada, but if I get moved, it can only get better. I think that's what his thought was, and that's a good idea.
It's true, and it's also funny because you know what you have to do to pay a tax rate is establish residency. And that's what people forget all the time. It's like they think you just show up in Texas and it's like, bang, less tax. No, I'm American. I played for the Dallas Stars. Guess where I still had to pay tax? In the state of Missouri, where my domicile was. I lived here. You have to repatriate that back to your home state. So there's a little bit of miscommunication, I think, with even players. They're not understanding the legalities of taxation. But regardless, he clearly didn't want to be in California. So
still doesn't.
He still doesn't, because he said, no, man, I'm not doing that.
Fuck off. I'm not going.
And I would do the exact same. Dude, if this would have happened to me, I would have been absolutely livid. And I was somebody who was really involved in unions. I was on the board for 10 years in the American League on exec board with the PHPA, Professional Hockey Players Association. And I think this just shows and exposes, though, how weak the CBA and some of the legal language is for things. Like I've found stuff within the CBA that I look at, I go, man, this has no teeth. Why is this even in here? Yep. You know, like how is there not a central registry for no trade lists? There isn't. It's between the player and the team.
The team's supposed to keep track of this. The argument for that is that the players don't want it getting out. The agents don't want it getting out. I understand that.
I get it too. But if you don't have that, this can happen. Like it needs to at least be filed somehow. And,
but like, and sorry to cut you off, but like as a player, I think you would agree, if I have a no trade clause that's 10 teams deep, I don't need 10 cities hating my guts because I put them on there for their tax bracket. And on the flip side, you're like, well, then this can happen. How many times has this ever happened? So like, if I'm a player and I'm not, you were, I would have said, it's fine. If it happens to the one guy, just cross my fingers. It's not me.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's happened a couple times where it's gotten real loose and it's more or less got swept under the rug, just like this one just got swept under the rug.
The Berglund one.
Berglund, they didn't file in time. Straight up.
They screwed it up.
They did. And this one was filed in time. And Berglund took it hard because he did not want to be traded.
Well, but it also furthers the idea that like a lot of people are saying, well, you can just go to Cap Friendly or Puckpedia and see the no trade clause. Well, but if he didn't file it on time, that has no meaning. Yes, it's in the contract, but if they believe it's filed on time, it has no meaning. There is precedent in the NHL that someone has not filed it on time. Sure. That has happened before. So to act like, well, that could never have happened, it has happened.
It's happened, and it's foolish to think that Cap Friendly or Puckpedia is always correct. And they don't list the teams. It's just what it is. They don't have the teams, you know. Here's some. Yeah, somebody's telling me about the taxes I've paid. Hi, Aaron. There we go. That is true in cities.
For those on the podcast, not entirely true, Mike. We have jock taxes. Visiting players pay taxes in some states for game checks earned inside of that state.
Right, and that's visiting players. So, and that's typically in cities. Like I have paid, I can't tell you how many different cities and states I've paid taxes in the last several years. So I'm talking about establishing residency. If you play in a city, you have to do those things. Like home players usually don't have that. Anyway.
To take advantage of living in Texas and playing your games in Texas, you have to have the residency in Texas. You aren't going to be there long enough. Are you actually going to buy a house? Is that going to benefit you? That's what goes through. That's why we have similar CPA. Yeah.
So like teams, this happens. Players don't get them in on time. You just don't get them in on time. Like
and the Golden Knights had reason to believe that it wasn't in on time. And we know that because the league said deal's fine. The deal is fine.
And that's the unbelievable part, is that the league screwed this up somehow. The league didn't give the right information.
That's correct.
And to me, that all goes back to Ottawa. As it's incompetency on Ottawa's part, no doubt in my mind. And it's not surprising
that way.
Knowing that they run with a staff of nobody. They've turned over half of their department in the front office because a lot of reasons.
Okay, no one probably, yes.
Yeah, and poor leadership, bad ownership. Like they don't want to work for a guy that they don't believe is going to support them. So like it clearly to me starts with Ottawa, but I can't imagine how, even if you're Vegas, you don't dig deep on this. And so much of it, I think, it's like what you said, Ken. This was like last minute stuff, and it was like, well, he doesn't have it, so let's go for it here.
So that's kind of where I want to go. Is that I have been, I don't know what the term is, but barking up this tree or championing. I hate to use that term because I am in no way a champion of anything, but I have been very, very vocal about why aren't you talking to Nate Schmidt? Why aren't you talking to Marc-Andre Fleury? Why aren't you giving this information to all these different players? How is Oscar Lindberg on the ice when he's traded? How are these things consistently happening? And the pattern, it's Vadim Shipachyov, that goes all the way back to him. Like, the pattern has consistently been there is a lack of communication between front office, head coach, and players. It's not always very good. And when you get something like this, which is we didn't know he had a no trade clause, everyone's then going to take the pattern of behavior that I am in a big portion of why everyone knows about this pattern of behavior and say, why didn't you just talk to him? And there is reason to say that. Yes, they probably could have. Here's my argument before I let you go. I'll tell you that this Periscope or this goalie interference episode is brought to you by the Jimerson Law Firm. Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes civil, family, and business litigation. When winning matters, seek out the Jimerson Law Firm. Here's why I think the Golden Knights are okay here. Because when you acquire the player and you are told he has a no-trade clause, but it's void, you don't really think about it at that moment because we're not trading Evgeny Dadonov. We just bought Evgeny Dadonov. We think he's going to be an excellent player. It doesn't really matter at that point. 10 teams, no, whatever. We'll figure it out at another time. Doesn't really make a difference. And really, if it doesn't exist, why are you actively trying to put something back in? Then when we get to the point that he does need to be traded, you're like, uh-oh, this guy's not very good. We have a cap problem. It's time for us to do this. Now you say, okay, he had a 10-team no trade clause. We have been told that it is not active. It's void. They probably reached out to the league and said, hey, in the event that we go down this path, what does it say? They said, well, whatever you were told, we're going to ask you, what were you told? And you were told that. We're going to, the deal's going to go through. So at that point, why in anywhere ever would a team or a player or anyone go back and say, you know what? I wish he did have a 10-team no trade clause. It's like slashing a guy across the back of the legs and then going to the ref and being like, hey, I just did that. I should sit in the box for 2 minutes. You wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it.
Teams are never going to go up to a player and go, hey, do you have a no trade clause?
They're not going to do
this.
that.
This isn't a communication deal between the players in front. I think people would be shocked how little communication there is league wide there between players in front office.
I don't think
like a superstar or super type.
Shocked by that.
No, but I do think in some ways they think that there should be more. Like Marc-Andre Fleury was not kept in the loop at all with what was going on. He should have been kept in the loop.
There should be more.
I think in some instances there needs to be, but when you're dealing with trades at the trade deadline, sometimes secrecy is your most important thing.
I'm fine with those.
And like, dude, if you're trying to get rid of Dadonov, like you're not going to go to him in advance and go, "Hey, we're moving you." Like, you can't. But
can't do it.
Like, man, it's just mind blowing. Like I really need to know what happened here. Like, and we won't, and that's so frustrating to me because I would love to know exactly who to lay the blame with here. Because I still think that there's a little bit of something devious going on, man. Because like, even if Vegas knows that this guy had a lapsed no trade list, like you're definitely making this move greasy. Okay, legal but greasy if you do that. I mean, that's what the Blues did to Bergman. I mean, that just sent him down a spiral. But this is business. Like, if you screw up the business,
in the first place was greasily dealing with the LTIR.
Yeah. So I don't see it as a communication deal. I just see this This is a microcosm of all the bullshit that can roll downhill when you play with fire. Like, and I think that they absolutely ran this to the last second involving IR, salary cap. This should have been taken care of months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about the offseason because you didn't know whether you were going to get Eichel or not. But once you got Eichel and you started to see how things were going, you needed to make a move at some point. And it would have been better to do it earlier in the year when you could have figured out your lines and integrated people.
And I think what's frustrating is like we kept asking that. Well, when are you going to do this? Well, we have a plan and we'll do the plan when we need to do the plan. And now, like, the plan just blew up in your face. And we're all saying, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you kind of got screwed here. That should have never happened. But like, you're here. Like, you're in this. Like, your plan didn't work. Not
this wasn't.
You should have known this before. I completely get that argument.
The plan wasn't to pay somebody a second-round draft pick to take a guy off your hands. You know,
I think
if that's your plan, that's
when you bought Eichel,
right? If that's your plan, that you got to pay somebody to go away, then
they've been
2 summers
forever.
Yeah, but 2 summers ago they wouldn't pay the price to get rid of Fleury when they had teams that wanted Fleury.
And they did pay the price to get rid of Fleury. No, it was not a draft pick, but all they got was Mikhail Hekarainen, and that's a price. You just traded the reigning Vezina winner for nothing. That's a price. You gave that away. Nate Schmidt.
The year before, they could have had a first rounder, second rounder for him.
Yes. They just got a second rounder for him for half the season, and he's not even playing that well. Like, I think he'll be better, whatever. But like, they have done this, and I said it. I wrote like a 7-tweet long thread before they even got Eichel. If you trade for Jack Eichel, you are going to have to do X, or X, Y, and Z, and all of those you have 0 leverage from. Well, look at their leverage now.
Doesn't it feel like all of this was just, we're going to get the player, figure it out later, we'll deal with the ramifications, and it just sure feels like they were hoping that LTIR was going to work out. At some point, players are going to get hurt. You toss them on, it's going to be fine. Worst case, if the team is healthy, we'll run it right to the deadline and we'll get rid of one player, even if we have to pay to get rid of him.
And what's crazy is every guy on the team has been hurt, and they still couldn't do the LTIR thing. They still needed to pay a second round pick and take on a horrific contract to make this happen. Like, this is the ripple effect of the Eichel deal. They are paying the price for it. And yes, it appears that not a major, I need a new sign that says not a trade right underneath it, because they got screwed on this one too, I think. But you put yourself in this position. Same thing as this. You're up 3-1 in the series. It shouldn't have come to this, but it did. Yep. It sucks, but it did.
It did. And you know, the more this year's gone by, Ken, I remember having this conversation with you earlier in the season when they got Eichel that, isn't this really a setup for next year? Well, it really could have been that if they would have taken care of this when they needed to. Like, if they would have just ripped the Band-Aid off and traded Riley Smith in November or December, everything's done.
Yep.
For the most part. You know what I mean? And they didn't want to do that. I understand why you didn't want to do that. But
need the points now.
Dude, like, do you want Riley Smith or Jack Eichel? Like, do you want this player or this? Like, your shiny toy was Jack Eichel. This is what you wanted. This is what you had to have. Like, I remember in the summer saying they're gonna trade for this guy. Like, the moment they lost to the Montreal Canadiens, they said, well, they're going to trade for Eichel next year.
Yeah.
And people laughed at me. And they're like, how are they going to fit that with the salary cap? I go, when on earth has the salary cap ever stopped this team? It didn't stop them from Petrangelo. It didn't stop them from trusting 16 players against Colorado Avalanche, the most important game that teams ever played leading into playoffs last season. You think it's going to matter going into this year that they pick up Eichel and there's even a salary cap? Well, dude, it makes you look around the league, and it makes you see people like Doug Armstrong in St. Louis, who's won a Stanley Cup previously. Finally. And two of them, actually. He won one in Dallas as well. But like, I tell you what, that guy is smart, and he does not have anybody above him telling him what to do. It is his team. He is the general manager. He doesn't have outside influence. And, you know, this year at the deadline, I look at him, and he said before the deadline, I love our team. We could win with our team. Okay, Doug, your team's okay, man. You know what he's doing? He's putting some confidence in his team. He knew he wasn't going to make a big swing. If he could have gone for like Chikrin or these other big D on it, maybe he would have.
Right.
He didn't get them. And he didn't buy big. And he didn't go for something crazy because there's cost certainty involved when he did. And I even look at Tampa. Even when Tampa was monkeying around with the LTIR, there was a very clear plan with what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
And the moment that they needed to shed salary and make it happen, they did it.
Tyler Johnson goes.
Tyler Johnson, see you later.
Yeah.
Yanni Gord, all right, you're gone as well. Coleman and Goudreau, thanks for the Stanley Cup rings.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yes.
What are we going to do? We're going to take our draft picks that are late round firsts anyway, and we're going to get Brandon Hagel at $1.5 million for the next 2 years.
That's a team that understands the importance of entry-level contract.
Yes, and developing from within.
You have entry-level contract making a difference. And that is, we're going to get to it down the show, why the Golden Knights are not playing very well on the ice, because they have picked a total of this many, it's a 0, I'll put it in the middle, this many players who are helpful in the draft. This many, none, 0, no players that are helpful in the draft.
Yep, right now. Wait,
huge problem.
Nick Hague. Okay,
he's out. Even
he
Nick
is a player.
He's fine. He's replaceable. I like Nick Hague.
But listen, there's a ton of replaceable players in the league. So let's toss him in.
5 years in, he's replaceable. That's a problem. Early second round pick, replaceable player. Can't happen. You gotta hit.
So we've definitely gone hard on this, and for good reason.
I wonder why.
But everything that we talked about at the start, and I kind of lost track on it because I got a little angry there, is this really should have been a setup year, like you were saying, if they did make this trade. And they weren't willing to do that. And that's where it should have been even at the trade deadline. This team has, if they make the playoffs, they're going to win the cup. They're not going to make playoffs, even if they do.
This team?
I'm facetiously saying that because, if they make the playoffs and they get everybody off of LTIR, what it would mean is that if they make the playoffs, they've gone it. Let me indulge the fantasy a little bit here.
All right, go into fantasy land. Go in there.
Let's say they somehow magically score on every rush and find a goalie who will only give up 1.5 goals the rest of the year. Maybe this happens. Let's say they somehow make it in, and then all of a sudden here comes the Russia LTIR players. Watch out. But I don't see that. They're not built for playoffs in the first place. Well, thank you, Nick, at Friday Night. I appreciate that. Imagine if
don't say
there's a lot of things that I've felt. I'm very concerned about this team even in the future at this point now, because it's not getting younger. I mean, Pacioretty's basically been hurt at the end of the last 3 years.
And this year's been all year. Yeah.
And God, he's the only sniper on the club, man. I'm sorry. You can hope Marshy catches fire and pops a few in, but he's not Pacioretty. He's the only guy on this club's going to go over 30 goals. He's the only guy.
They need Brendan Brisson at age 20 to be Pacioretty at age 22. Right. That's what needs to happen. It's unlikely.
I mean, even Mark Stone's never hit 30 goals. You know what I mean? This team doesn't have goal scorers. They have by committee. And dude,
Mark Stone,
they're missing
entire season where he couldn't play back-to-back games. What's going to be next year?
Boy, and it's a back. Backs are scary.
Concerning. Alec Martinez, is he going to play again? I still can't understand. Did you get to watch the McCrimmon press conference?
No, I did not
see the
best
that you didn't. It was very odd, and now I'm understanding why it was so odd, because I can only imagine the last 3 hours of conversation that he was having was banging his head against the wall, and for good reason. Nonetheless, I asked, do you expect to have Mark Stone or Alec Martinez back this season? Now, I should have said regular season. I didn't. I screwed that up. Back this season. He said, it's a possibility, and then stopped and looked at me. And I said, okay, well then, is that in the plans when you're making moves today? Was that what you meant to do? He said, I think that's exactly what I'm saying. It's a possibility means it will happen. It will happen.
Okay.
So, like, really? Like, we're for sure 16 games left. We're for sure getting Martinez and Stone back. Like, that seems almost wrong in a way. I also think he was being inaccurate or unforthcoming about Dadonov. He said, we got what we expected out of this player when we acquired him.
Okay.
That was a direct, you know what that was? We might be getting him back.
Yeah, that's a dodge. So, I mean, this is just a mess. Okay. Like, it's an absolute schmozzle.
So, like, I come from media background. My entire life has been in media. I went to journalism school. I am always going to take the side of, oh, crazy shit just happened. Wouldn't it be great if everyone involved talked about it and we can get all the information? Never happens. I get that. I think they're making a massive mistake not putting Kelly McCrimmon up tonight or tomorrow morning, which it is seemingly not happening based on the press releases that we have. Where do you come in on that? I think he should talk, like, now.
Well, I mean, this is a big mess, but I think in their eyes, the way they've always operated is, well, we've said our piece. We sent our tweet, we posted it. We welcome Yevgeny Dadonov back to our team. And then 2 days from now, he's going to get traded to the Arizona Coyotes for a first-round draft pick or whatever, so they can save 3.75 and get Stone back for 5 games at the end of the year so he can gut it out and the team doesn't make playoffs. Like, can we just, like, write all that down in case that happens word for word? Because I already called Marc-Andre Fleury to Minnesota 2 months ago. I already called Nick Leddy to the Blues 2 months ago. I'm feeling a little Nostradamus-y right now.
That's actually the favorite. I think what you just laid out is all the favorite. I actually know William Hill, the William Hill mobile sports app, is not presenting the playoff odds, but other sports books have put it. The Golden Knights are 2.5 to 1 dogs to make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, they're sitting 30%, I think.
They're in trouble.
Yeah, Dallas has a lot of games, and it's.
I mean, Dallas is gone. I think Dallas is gone. Like, forget about them. I think your best bet is LA.
I wouldn't count it
enough. I think that's their best bet. I think the Oilers are probably gone too.
I was going to say, don't count out the Oilers.
I mean,
the Oilers.
Yeah, they Oilers themselves. Everyone.
The Oilers can put themselves out of it real quickly.
And they actually have a relatively tricky schedule. One of their easiest games left on the schedule is the Golden Knights, which should tell you something, but whatever. Like, I think the Golden Knights are in big trouble to make the playoffs. And that's whether, I think if Mark Stone comes back tomorrow, I still think they're in big trouble. They basically have to win all of the games against the bad teams. Are they going to beat Seattle back to back?
Oh, I mean, they should. But I mean, like, Stone's. There's going to be enough wins down the stretch for everybody to still get hope. Like we talked about recently, Ken.
It depends when they come. If they lose tomorrow, and then they drop one of the Seattles, and they've gotten 4 points in 4 games in the next 4, it's over. You need 18 in 10 games. You're done.
Yeah. It's hard to do, man. Like, in this, it's the mathematics of hockey are hard for players to understand because you always look at it and think you have time. We're not that far out.
16 games, plenty of time.
Like 10 games left, we're 6 points out. We can do this. No, there's other teams that are still playing hockey games and still collecting points. That's how it works.
Well, and there's loser points.
Sometimes even as well as you're playing, you can't make that up. Like, I don't like how they look against Vancouver. Arizona's played them well lately. Like,
wow. That's not the case. I mean, good thing
I'm just
not going to be allowed to play in that game.
Yeah, I mean, they went out and beat Florida, which I was giving them prayer for that game.
That was a great game. They played excellent in that game.
And then, hey, come out and clobbered the Kings, who are very shorthanded, like you said.
Good game against them. Yeah.
They played well, but
2 different styles of games, which I thought was cool to see. Like, whoa, look at this. They can play up tempo. They can play down tempo. They can pack it in. Like, there was a lot of good things to say. And then you go on a 2-game road trip and you don't even come close to scoring. Carrier had a wide open net, and I don't know what happened there.
Well, Stevenson had one that was just gaping, as they say, and he missed 2. But, like, here's the problem. Well, Carol Carrier is not a goal scorer, and Stevenson's, I mean, he can. But, like I said, these aren't sure bets. The puck's not going onto, Steven Stamkos' stick here. Like, they're missing players. They're not as bad on paper, though, as it really looks. Like they should still be able to get something. And they should be able to grind out wins.
Yes.
That's what I think. And they can't grind because they don't play grind. They don't have the personnel to do it. And they've looked lost.
And they're
drafting. This game.
Killing them.
Yeah. And dude, like, let's look at these last two games. Okay. So if you could pull it, like I did a little bit of analysis for everybody, just looking through Instat, and it verified what I thought I had seen.
That's the one you wanted?
Yeah, that's good for now. So what we're pulling up right now, we're going to give you the season overview. And for people that aren't watching, what this really says is that the Golden Knights, like most teams, have scored their goals pretty spread out. Okay, it's an even distribution. 33 high to the left side, 20 high to the right side, 24. They're just very even in the net. Okay, it's everywhere.
It's high.
Yeah,
actually 60% is high almost.
Yeah. So, but like you could see it's a pretty even dispersal here, though, Ken, of where the goals have been scored for the Golden Knights on the goal.
Yeah.
For people listening on the podcast, we're looking at the goal itself, and it's very even. Okay. So keep this in mind now when we flip it over to where the leading team in the NHL, which is the Florida Panthers, what theirs looks like. Okay. So notice once again the top 6 boxes on this. 19, 9, 28, 36, 8, 29, very even. But look where the Florida Panthers are scoring a lot of goals. Low. Many more goals than the Golden Knights the Panthers have scored. Low. My point here is that the Florida Panthers score low, not because they're beating goalies 5-hole, not on clean shots. They're scoring tap-ins. They're moving the puck quickly. They're ripping seams. They're making plays. That's what we haven't seen from the Golden Knights. We haven't seen that playmaking ability. And honestly, Jack Eichel hasn't brought that. He's been a shooter, and his shooting's been way off the pace. And that's typical of a player who hasn't played in a year. You know, he's shooting pucks right into making Hellebuck's chest look amazing. So the Golden Knights score more of their goals on the rush, clean shots, beat the goaltender, as opposed to the goaltender not in the net. That's the analysis of what we're seeing here. So let's take that and now look at the game against the Minnesota Wild and where the shots were. And you can see here where the Golden Knights have shots. 3 up top, in the top half of the net. Most were low. That's normal for them. This was just a very low shot total game where they didn't generate a ton. And Talbot was fine. Okay. Now, I didn't notice much from this game. It looked normal to me. If we look at what Connor Hellebuck did last game, the whole game, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, get the puck in the air, guys. And like this happens to me sometimes when I watch games, Ken. And for everyone that can't see this shot map that we're showing right now, the net's split into 3 levels. Like you've got a low level, a middle level, and a high level. Not one single shot in the top level. This one of the 40 shots.
This one right here in the middle is like, if it was maybe 6 inches higher, I think it might qualify in that upper middle. I bet you that shot hit him directly in the logo.
Yes. So, you know, Hellebuck makes a glove save on Eichel that was in the middle of the net. And I think he had one on Stevenson as well. Somebody else from the slot area, like Carrier. Dude, the Golden Knights didn't put a single puck in the air on Connor Hellebuck. So this guy, like, what is your scouting report on this guy? So either one, I mean, they didn't generate a whole ton off the rush, and that's where their high shots generally come from that they score on. But like, I think the Golden Knights are now in the frame of mind that they're thinking, we can't score. We got to get greasy ones, put it in his feet, go to the net, get rebounds. That's not who they are. They don't score like that. Like, you might as well waste it by Hellebuck's ears if you're going to try to bury it. Like, how many times did Carrier put it in his pads?
That is one thing we're missing on this, to be fair, is that they probably missed the high net quite a bit.
They did.
They miss a lot. They miss a lot of shots. I mean, I actually looked it up. They're in 23rd in shooting percentage. And if you go back to just 2022, they're in the bottom 5.
Yeah, they miss it a ton. Like, this team is not accurate.
And that's only shots on goal. I mean, when you take into consideration, if you were to do like Corsi, it's bad. Like they are not accurate.
And then, we get somebody, Mr. The Fox 101. I love looking in our comments here, everybody. I get a big kick out of this. Where he says, does this team need stick handling and shot practice? These guys practice shots.
Where's that one? Was it the one I put up?
Yeah. You got it.
Oh, I'm an idiot. I only read the first 5 minutes. Sorry, Mr. Fox 101.
Right. So
Mr. The Fox. Sorry.
Does this team need stick handling and shot practice? Well, these players all shoot the pucks endlessly. This is a personnel issue. This isn't the players getting better at shooting. What you see is what you get with these guys for the most part. And even Jack Eichel's, he's a 10% shooter career. He's at 7.5 right now. He's really not far off the pace
one
of
goal
what you'd expect. Right. So we're kind of splitting hairs there. It's really just who you have in the lineup. And, we got another comment here from Wrench Doozer. By the way, that's a great name, saying, well, Jets aren't good at clearing the front of the net, so greasy goals might be good in the scouting report. Greasy goals are always in the scouting report. The problem is, I think that sometimes Vegas fixates on it because they become so machine-like with the players they have playing within DeBoer's system that go, get the puck, down the ice, attack. And then we get in the zone, we're going to get a greasy goal and put it in. And
get back up to the point and let's battle in front. And we suck at battling in front.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, last year in playoffs, I remember William Karlsson, Wild Bill, he pumped probably 5 shots. It wasn't in playoffs. It was against Adin Hill when he was with Arizona. I remember this distinctly. 5 shots right in his pads. Okay. Wide open, clear as day. And I remember saying on the brackets, I'm like, he's got to elevate the puck, get the puck in the air. And I kind of got some pushback on it. And what Karlsson comes on between periods and goes, well, I need to get the puck in the air. And I just I remember being on set, I threw my water bottle over my head. I was like, yeah, exactly. And how simple is this? How simple is this and how stupid is it that I'm saying they need to elevate the puck? But look at the shot total, man.
You could say it.
Yes. Put it in the air. Hellebuyck doesn't have great hands. He's not athletic. How are you not paying attention to the goalies you're playing against? So I love to look at these shot maps and I love to try to uncover why things are happening. And to me, it just really doubles down on what this team is. They're a rush team and they score most of their goals on clean shots. They don't score on tap-ins and lateral plays.
Very rarely is there a tap-in. You just don't see.
Yeah. And I think that's a personnel issue as much as system. It's just kind of who you have. These guys aren't great playmakers. You have a lot of players that are really good, but not a lot of great at anything. You don't have a great playmaker. You don't have a great goal scorer except Pacioretty, and he's hurt right now. And your great playmaker is Mark Stone, and he's hurt right now.
No, you did trade for Jack Eichel, and he's not hurt right now. And Alex Pietrangelo is not hurt right now. And Shea Theodore is not hurt right now. And William Karlsson makes $5.9 million, and he's not hurt right now. Yeah. And Jonathan Marchessault has scored 30 goals in 4 straight seasons, or at least real close, and he's not hurt right now.
Yep.
And Evgeny Dadonov, you paid $5 million for, and a second-round pick and Nick Holden in the offseason to fix your power play, and he wasn't hurt. You actually just traded him, except it got voided, and now you have him back. Welcome back, Evgeny.
Yep. They miss Alex Tuck, by the way. So I just...
You know who is a playmaker, too? Peyton Krebs.
Could be.
When you were saying, you thought that they were going to get Jack Eichel, and you said that you thought that was going to happen, every once in a while, people find articles on Google that I've written, and I write them, I put them up, I don't delete them when something happens. I specifically wrote, the Golden Knights cannot include Peyton Krebs in a deal for Jack Eichel. Then they do exactly that, and now you get Buffalo fans, ha ha ha, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I know exactly what I'm talking about, and this is what the pushback was. Now you have to trade Evgeny Dadonov for a second-round pick and the contract of John Moore, which is absolutely horrible. Now you're missing another playmaker because you gave one away in him. You gave away Tuck. I knew that was probably going to happen in the deal, and also picks, and now you also have to subtract from your roster moving forward. One of the things I had on the rundown that I do think we need to touch on, because everybody knows now the deal's dead. It's over. Evgeny Dadonov is back. 2 questions. First, do you play him tomorrow? It seems like they're planning on it, or at least that's what Pierre LeBrun reported. That's number one. Would you play him tomorrow? You're in charge of the team. He's in the lineup, yes or no? And number two, how do the Golden Knights solve this problem?
They have to play him because they need players.
That's very scary.
And I mean, if you're Dadonov and you're a hockey player, you just go out and do your thing. But man, I'm telling you, like, what inspiration does he have? He is a dead man walking in Vegas. They don't want him. They don't want his contract.
Lame duck.
Like, dude, that's a terrible spot to be. I'm sorry, man. Like, even if you're the most noble guy on the planet, it's really hard to perform when you have that feeling. What a dad joke that is. Daddy issues dad joke. So, you know, I think you kind of have to play him because of who he is, and he could still score and do stuff. But how do you fix that? Like, I want to know what that conversation was like. Well, Yevgeny, we're very sorry, but you're still our property, and we're going to put you back in the lineup, and we need you to perform for us. I think you should actually have a lifetime membership to the Foley Food and Wine Club. You know what? They should be sending them cases of wine on a weekly basis or something.
That conversation didn't happen.
No.
We know the history of this franchise and talking to their players. They got him back. They sent the tweet. Maybe they texted him the tweet. I don't know. I guess that's possible. Hey, look, we welcomed you. No, they're just going to put him in the lineup.
Well,
I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
There'll be no conversation.
I'll push back on that a little, Ken. I don't want to paint these guys as total villains because I think that in this scenario, they have to talk to the player. If you don't talk to the player, he may not show up. Like literally. Like I think they have to.
If he doesn't show up, you don't pay him.
No, I mean like on the ice. Like I mean this can be cancerous very quickly, and we're not talking stage 1. Like this is not good, and this is.
Jeez.
What this has written all over it is what are we doing?
I actually haven't really considered that.
Yeah, there has to be a conversation, and you have to tell them, listen, this was just.
It may not.
What they're gonna tell them is like, we really like you as a player. You've done everything we've asked for us and everything else, but we had to get rid of your salary cap hit. That's what we had planned on, and we're very sorry that it came down to all this. And like, any player on earth is going to know that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah,
but it still has to be said. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things where you like, I imagine it's like a 10-year reunion where your ex walks in and you're like, I don't want to talk to this person, but I think I still need to be here type of thing.
I've had those meetings.
You had an ex?
No, I've never had an ex. I've had meetings where I've been told this is a good meeting that we should probably have. And then I've gone to the meeting and thought, is this thing over?
Yeah.
And it lasted like 95 minutes, the last
one. Let me put a bow on this so we can get through the rest of the stuff as well. Like, even if they have that conversation, what happens if they trade him to Arizona tomorrow or the day after?
Probably what's going to happen eventually.
I know.
You have to.
And that's just like a double kick in the shorts.
I mean,
So I don't know.
But like, I guess that was my question before we bring Jason on. Like, that was this trade, Evgeny Dadonov for Ryan Kessler and John Moore, and the Golden Knights give up a second-round pick in it. It was desperation buying $3.5 million worth of salary cap. Like, I think that became awfully clear when they put it together. And then I thought that the press conference afterwards, despite it being angrier in a way than we've normally seen Kelly McCrimmon, and I will give him a complete pass on this because I have to imagine that he's being told this trade may not even go through. And he's like, this is complete bullshit. I get it where he's coming from, but the reasoning and the explanation, the question was asked by Jesse Granger, basically like, why do you need this cap space? Why does your team get better? And it essentially was, our team will improve through health. We are going to get healthier. And when we get healthier, we are going to improve. Here's the problem. Now that you've shown your cards that you needed that $3 million of cap space and you were willing to pay that much for it, you have to do something else. And I think it's going to have to be him again.
Mm-hmm. So it can't be anybody else.
They have to do this.
Like, dude, he doesn't want to play for this team anymore.
No. So you have to do this. And then the price, because now you're only negotiating with like 10 teams. Arizona might be on the no trade list. We don't know that. I'm not even sure if the Golden Knights know that. They probably do now, but who knows?
Pierre Dorion may not know that.
Right,
He may have shredded that trade list for all we know.
What an absolute disaster this becomes, because you thought, and I railed on that trade. I hated that trade. I still hate that trade. I think it's a horrific thing that they have forced themselves into doing. And if that's what you needed to do, get rid of Shea Theodore, get rid of William Karlsson, actually sell at the deadline if that's what you actually had to do. They didn't want to do that. They think they're going to get better through health, and they still think they're making the playoffs. I think it's ridiculous. They're not. I don't think, I still think it's possible to make the playoffs, but even if you get in the playoffs, nothing's going to happen. That's where I'm at. So that's the part that like bugs me, is like, this is not a good deal. It gets reverted, and I can be pumped that it's reverted because that deal sucked. But the next one is going to be way worse.
And I don't know where they backfill, because there's no prospects coming in the next year or two.
It's not even like there's a hopeful one. Like Hayes and Pahal didn't look good, man.
No, you know what I mean? Like, and
that's defensemen and they're both defense first defensemen. That's not horribly surprising that you chuck them in a road game and it's two tricky teams to play against. Okay, that's not the end of the world. I think you might have a number 6 defenseman out of Pahal or Hayes. I'm not writing that completely off, but like, you do not have a difference maker in the entire system. The only one possible is Brendan Brisson, and I don't think he's big enough.
We can't predict there. I haven't even watched Brisson play enough to really know. But you should have – every team, no matter what your status, should have – when you look at the minor league team and you watch them play, you should be looking at 3 to 4 players that are going to make an impact on the team eventually.
Yeah.
And like Jack Dugan.
Yeah.
Like, he's nowhere. Like, I mean, like, there's a lot of players down there that just aren't there. And anybody who watched him throw saucing pucks around cross ice in training camp in the first couple of games of preseason the last 2 years, anybody that knows hockey went, this guy's not going to do it. Like, I'm not bullish on the team. I actually think they could recover next year if they make trades, but I think like after next year, man, I think this window's tight, like shut tight. I really do. I think next year they could still kind of run this thing back and make a bit of a play. But man, it's going to deal with health again, and I don't trust Stone's back. Patches is just hurt all the time, and those are your big dogs. So,
all right, let's bring Jason on here, because
let's hear from him.
I feel like we've gone too long. We normally bring you up like a half an hour in. I feel like you probably fell asleep there, and I don't blame you. Could have also probably done the same.
I'm bored of you guys, of course, but also there's no action.
It does look good back there, though. Like the point of the Eichel Tower is it looks good. I do think that glare on the poster above it is rough. I mean, granted, Mike is like in a horror movie right now.
I love that somebody brought that up. You do look like the Blair Mike project.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Is concerning. Yeah. My question for Jason is the optics of what has happened here, and also with the team isn't winning. They've lost 7 straight road games. They are like 2 or 3 in their last 10. They're falling out of the playoff picture. Like, is this correctable? Like, do they need something massive in the offseason? I'm not going to pin you down to what massive, but are we headed to an offseason that it's like, we need something big here?
Well, I mean, it's sort of unpredictable with this club, because we would have, I think all 3 of us would say, yeah, of course, right? They need something to change. Ken, you've already talked about it, bringing Foley out to explain what's going on with the state of the organization. And then Mike even talked about that if they don't make moves this offseason, then, the window's closing fast. I just, how can you, I mean, as ownership, do you trust this front office to go ahead and clean all this up and all of a sudden extend their window and have a cup contender for the next 3 to 5 years?
Mike, would you? You're the owner. You're Bill Foley now. You trusting that this is just going to get better next year?
Well, I come from a hockey background, not a business background, so I can't put myself in those shoes, man. I think that I think yes. I think that he's sold that if the team's healthy, we're awesome. I mean, that's my guess. Like, because, dude, otherwise it would have sold at the deadline.
Well, in a way,
that's valid.
Think about it. I'm thinking that if they gave a second, they accepted this deal to Anaheim, other teams were probably asking for a higher pick. And the Golden Knights, probably with Anaheim, it was probably the best deal. So they made it happen.
Well, because you don't want to give that pick in division. It would be much better if that pick was going to another, New York Islanders or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they really care about in division. I think it's probably one of their only options because you also had Kessler's contract sitting there that they could eat up. And I think that was a big driving force. And it was just swapping out stuff like that. Like
more on Foley. Like, oh, yeah, by the way, this crap team that we're trying to reinforce, we also need you to take on this crap contract.
Right.
How do you tell that to him? And then the whole thing gets turned around and you look like you have egg on your face, to borrow a Blessing phrase. Like, that's brutal. Like, I have never thought that we were all that close to massive changes, front office, head coach, any of that. I've really never felt like we were that close. The optics of this one are horrible. Horrible. And even if it's not their fault, it is horrible. They have to start considering it if they miss the playoffs.
Well,
and by they, I mean
I don't know if they're going to repaint the offices with like sometimes retreat, some in advance when necessary.
Maybe it probably should. I mean, it should have been at this deadline. It should have been retreat when retreating is necessary.
Yeah, I just don't know I don't know how much they could have moved. Honestly, dude, I think this is real. I don't think teams want to help them either.
No,
I think that's a huge part because maybe, Mike, they were trying to sell. Maybe Carlson, Riley Smith were names that were out there, but teams weren't willing to pay what the Golden Knights thought their asset was worth.
Or just didn't want to deal with them, period. Like there is an undercurrent of around the league. It's teams don't like the Golden Knights, man. Like,
boy, I hate
that's real.
Idea, by the way, Foley doubles his money if he sells today. He should sell. Would be terrified of what would come in behind him. I have no interest in him.
Listen, you can fault the guy for whatever you want, chasing shiny objects or anything. You want somebody who's passionate with a ton of cash. Okay,
absolutely.
And he's got piles of money, and that's important. And he will always tell you what, he's always going to go for it. So if you're a fan, I think you're actually in a good spot here. As much as I don't agree with a lot of things that have done, I appreciate that because there's nothing worse than having shit ownership. That's just cheap. Okay, they're not cheap when it comes to hockey.
They don't have.
They maybe it might be misguided, but they're not cheap. Yeah. So,
Mike, going back to what you said about not wanting to deal with them, I believe it was Kevin Adams right after the trade. He said somebody asked him, "What is it like to deal with Kelly McCrimmon?" And he said it was hell. He said, in a joking manner, but he said it was legitimate hell. He said every day, I just wanted it to end. And I mean, they not bullied him around, but they badgered him enough to where he pulled the trigger on the deal.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That's a theme around the league. I know that's real. It's, they don't want to help him. Like, think about the goalie situation. McCrimmon was calling around asking for goalies.
He flat out denied that. Like, hard denied that in the press conference. And like, I'm aware we are, we have a history of saying things in press conferences that are flat out false, that are just 100% false. I've written about one before, but he specifically said, we did not at any point this season call about goalies, and shrugged off reports that that Leonard's actually injured.
Did he?
Why
text?
isn't he playing?
Maybe didn't make a call, but could he text?
He's coming back soon. It's coming back soon. Yeah. Okay.
They may not have called. See, like this is where like the semantics of it matter because it's like, dude, it's even, and I'm going to throw this back the same way. It's like, if you watched our daily face-off show where Frank Zaravalli broke the news of Leonard, what was thought to be his injury and never confirmed, it was always the fear is that he has this and they're awaiting diagnosis in this. And boy, did that get run with. It was not a 100% saying of that, and that's where
Robin took it as it was, which I
know
it was not.
It wasn't. And I think that's it's just tough because, like, again, man, there's no transparency with injuries, and the players don't want it either. So, like, it's kind of tough to have it both ways there, you know. Like, if you're okay, play. Like, dude, I played through so much shit in my career because I was afraid
He's
of somebody
clearly
taking
not
my
okay.
crease. No, you're not. Like, he's not. Like, if he was okay, he'd be playing.
Watching the team lose, and when they win, he's watching a 24-year-old or whatever Logan Thompson is potentially go on a run and steal the rest of his job.
Yeah, well, this might be a good segue for that, because I want to talk Thompson a little bit. So
it's a great segue. One of the few bright spots, at least I view him as a bright spot. I don't think he's been amazing. I don't think he's been life-changing in there like I think some people are hoping for. But Logan Thompson has been good and has, in many ways, taken the backup job from Laurent Brossoit. When you play back-to-back games, that's what's happened. But you have a little bit of an issue with the stance.
Well, it's not just the stance leads to a lot of the downstream issues that are with Thompson's game, and he has done a nice job. And he's got a ton of energy. I think that matters, that the players, like, here's the funny aspect. You get a player like Thompson who's kind of similar to Fleury. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of movement, and it's perceived as a lot of effort. And Thompson puts out a crazy amount of effort to accomplish very little. And I don't mean that in terms of like pucks flying past him all the time. He is moving 100 miles an hour no matter what until he has to stop. And sometimes you have to be nuanced in your positioning and in your stance and how you move. And I just want to show this to people to help make it clear what I mean on and why things happen with Thompson. So Ken's done a nice job of putting these two still images side by side, and I'll explain them also for people that are listening on the podcast. On our left side here, we have a picture of Cam Talbot, who has a very wide stance, and Talbot's 6'4", I believe, big goaltender, maybe even 6'5", but Thompson's every bit of 6'2" or 3, I think. You guys can correct me wrong. I think he's listed at 6'2", maybe 6'3". There's only an inch or two of difference here, but Talbot looks demonstrably bigger in the net because he has really good posture with his torso. You can see the logo, the Minnesota Wild logo on his chest. His hands are available. They're in front as they're relaxed. He's able to move. His stick's down low. Now, when you look at Thompson, he's incredibly low and wide in his stance. His hands are right next to him. And this is his stance. When you watch him before the save, before the shot comes, this is it. You cannot see the logo on his chest. And when I say that Thompson is all arms and legs, this is exactly what I mean. Not many of these pucks hit Thompson in the chest and are retained because his chest isn't available. His goalie posture is so far forward. He's so flexed at the waist that he plays incredibly small for someone his size. And that's how, even the goal that was called back against Winnipeg goes in, because he's playing so small. Now, if you zoom these back out, Ken, you can see, maybe not because they're side by side, but like these shots are from the same place. Like, I mean, like virtually like the exact same spot on the ice.
To each other, yeah.
Yes. And look at the size difference between these two. And so what happens, there's Logan Thompson, 6'4". That's a 6'4" goaltender giving away the whole top half of the net. And it's not just that he gets beat there. It's that when pucks hit his shoulders and his hands and his blocker, those pucks stay in front of him. They get bad rebounds. That's why he faces so many shots. He doesn't control rebounds well up top because it's a big bounce back. There's not that big absorbent area in the chest. You want your goalie posture to be nice and high so you can see the crest of your jersey. I'll tell you this. I would absolutely love to coach Logan Thompson because he has so much natural ability and athleticism and explosiveness. And I've talked to him, and he's an awesome guy.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, like, I would love to try to help to bring his game along. And this isn't me making a play to be a goalie coach. He's the type of goalie I'd want because he has natural gifts. And that's why he can play and dominate the American League. But it's going to be hard at the NHL level to dominate unless he has more patience and he stops moving into pucks so quickly and so overboard. Like, he'll slide past destinations often. Tip in goal by Scheifele the other night. He slides out of position because he's abandoning space. It should be an off-center drop, not a slide.
Like, he was very upset with himself on that one. Where were you on that one?
Well, it's a great tip. I don't have a problem with the goal. I have a problem with how he played the goal. He slid out of place. Like in those plays, if anything, you just want to off center drop a little bit so that you're not abandoning area. And it's the same way on the deflection goal last night. I think it was Ehlers, right? That he deflected it high slots. Scheifele again. No, it was the tip, not out of the air, but it was the rush chance against.
Towards the end of the game, and then they were already getting their butts kicked.
It was Ehlers, right?
Yeah.
So like that one goes through him again. It's because Thompson slides hard into where he thinks it's going, as opposed to just casually dropping where you need to and hitting your marks and your destination. He's not a precise goaltender. He's not crisp. He's on his ass and on his stomach a lot. So there's
Can you get more precise?
Yes, absolutely. But you need somebody to nail down skating routes. You need somebody to show you and prove to you why being a little more upright matters, why attacking pucks isn't the right answer all the time. Let it come to you. And so despite everything I'm saying right now, I'm breaking his game down. He's still got a 9-10 save percentage in the NHL. It's a limited sample size, but he's a rookie. He's doing that. He's dominated the American League for 50 games. And I've had people say that before. Well, he's done everything he can in the minors. No, he hasn't. He's never carried the mail for a full season in the American Hockey League. He had a half season last year when everything was all screwed up with COVID. And he's played like 20 games this year. Yeah. Okay, he's still very raw, very, very raw. And again, that kind of goes with my thinking of like, man, like if I'm Mike Rosati, I'm amped to work with this guy because I think he's still got a lot of room.
Would you be amped to work with someone who has a goalie stance like mine?
Oh God, you're beyond help. No, you look like the praying mantis. So
I look fantastic in there.
Ken, you would have wanted about 3 or 4 back.
Stop the 11 to 12.
You looked like a modified catcher in baseball who'd had a dozen Bud Lights and got out there and tried to stop some shots.
That's pretty much what happened. It was just Bud Light.
Mike, is he so worried about the gap in his legs that he's crouching down? I mean, it looks like he's almost trying to overcompensate his hole because it's smaller than Talbot's, but it's still very awkward the way his chest is.
It's not a 5-hole thing at all. He's not trying to compensate. All this really is his natural stance. This is what he does when a shot comes. And when goalies never used to play this low and wide until the equipment changed 5-10 years ago. Our pads used to be in the way. Our skates had interference that didn't allow for this. And now goalies rely on these wide stances all the time, but it also prevents them from rotating. Okay. So like if I could draw a line from his left pad at his foot to the post that's behind it, like he has a hard time rotating to get there. Because if you're sitting in your living room watching us right now, go ahead and stand up and put your feet 4 feet apart and see how hard it is to turn and move compared to if you're standing straight up and down with your feet like 2 or 3 feet apart instead. It's way easier. It's way easier to rotate and move. So this is part of it. He gets locked in here. He gets locked into this, and it prevents him from rotating very well to get to his posts and stay square to shots when the play goes sideways. And he ends up chasing the puck laterally east-west when he needs to kind of be moving like east-southeast and west-southwest. You know what I mean? So it's not him trying to compensate. This is just his natural stance.
Are there other goaltenders that have that stance that are successful?
Not that wide. I mean, Kari Lehtinen got away with it for a long time. Askarov is a hot prospect of the Nashville Predators who got eaten alive with this in World Juniors because he was so low and wide. Exactly what we see here.
Sure did.
But I would challenge people to look at every goalies and see. Like, again, Cam Talbot is very wide in his stance, but he doesn't have that posture with his hips bent over so forward. He still presents big. And I say this all the time about Robin Lehner. Lehner and Thompson are the same height. They're both 6'4". Now, there's probably anywhere from 50 to 70 pound weight difference. But I'm telling you, the weight doesn't matter. It's how you wear your equipment and how you position yourself, your posture. And Robin Lehner has excellent goalie posture. He presents his chest big. He's upright. Like, he looks like his goalie coach and our goalie coach with the Ottawa Senators organization was Rick Wamsley. And Wammer used to say this to Leonard all the time. Jesus Christ, Robin, you're as big as a goddamn house. Just stand there. And I just thought that's the dumbest advice ever. And the more I thought about it, all he was telling him was protect the middle of the net. Don't move too much. Use that size. Be big. Yeah. And he does a great job of that.
Calculated cheating is the better way to call that. That's a Robin Leonard phrase, calculated cheating. That's a lot better than I'm bigger than a house.
Yeah, but I like that phrase because he does read the play well, and he relies on good positioning. And if they could just let him see pucks from,
or am I like a condo? What? Again, I like to put this back to my goaltending.
I think you're kind of you're like a shed in the backyard.
Oh, okay. I was
like the sideways, like
Mike. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Mike.
Yeah,
you're Pete DeBoer, game 1. Who are you starting? If Leonard's not healthy, if he's not available.
Well, I think you have to see how Brossoit bounces back here in the next game or two, because I'd imagine he's going to go.
Does he right now? Game back-to-back losses. You're playing Nashville. Thompson was excellent against Nashville despite losing.
Yeah, but he wasn't. They've lost 2 straight, and he wasn't good last game. So I don't know. I think I just have a hunch. I guess bottom line, I think Brossoit is going to go. If I had to start a goalie right now today, it'd be Thompson, which is, I mean,
that's saying something. That's important. Like,
I just think I honestly, like, I don't think it really matters given the number of chances they give up against. Like, if the team plays halfway decent in front of Brossoit or Thompson, they got a good chance at winning. But if they give up 1,000 odd man rushes, they're not winning with either of them.
They have to score. They're not going to. I mean, I would have same thing. That I actually know. If I was the goalie in the last game, same thing. We still lose. Yeah. They had 0.
If they lose in playoffs, it's not going to be because of goaltending. It may look like it. It may be blamed, but it's not going to be because of goaltending. It's going to be because of team defense and personnel.
And doesn't that show that there's another mistake by the front office when we're talking about guys who are essentially $2 million off difference, right, between Thompson and Brossoit? So now they're spending an extra $2 million, and they might be starting a guy who's making $700,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, like, yeah, it's real. I mean, remember we had this conversation back in like December when Thompson got that contract extension, or it may even been at the very start of the year. And I said, if Thompson comes in and plays well, I could easily see Brossoit gone next year.
Yep.
Well, I think that's playing out because they can't afford to keep Brossoit at 2.5 when you got Thompson at his deal for next year.
Yeah. I mean, you look at what the cost on $3.5 million was to sit here and say that they should have not given Logan Thompson his chance. I think you can clearly say that. I mean, your head coach completely lost faith. He lost faith in Laurent Brossoit. Like, as much as Logan Thompson took that job over, I think what actually happened was Brossoit lost it, and then Thompson was the guy to take it, and then he actually won that game. So, and I think Logan's been good. Like, I don't think Logan's been horrible or anything of that sort, but like, that's what I think happened.
You're spot on. Put up this last tweet this last comment we got from Wes. And I'm not going to dwell on the revisionist history of Fleury with any other way other than what you've said here. The answer is yes.
Mike, are we now seeing how much Fleury covered up the D and maybe we weren't elite like we thought we were?
Not elite defensively. And I had a conversation today with somebody about this, that last year the Vegas Golden Knights got Vezina-worthy goaltending. And they got damn good goaltending from Robin Leonard too. And even the year before, when those two were going in lockstep together, really good goaltending. And that's always been one of the knocks on Leonard, is like, can he do this by himself? Like, he's been good in a tandem role before. And that hasn't been the case this year, and that's not DeBoer's MO. So, yeah, the answer is yes. Like, dude, Flower was lights out last year. He was so good. And this team's loose, and I think they're even looser this year. And especially it's exacerbated by the fact they just are missing personnel. It's a double whammy. Yep. And you're asking a lot for the goalies to pick up the slack on that. And that's not to take all the blame away. But, boy, you could see how pissed DeBoer was, though, after Brossoit's last. It was straight up, we need to save, get big in there. We need to save. Like, he didn't say get big in there, but he just said, like,
no, I had
you got to save one somehow.
We need at some point, we need some stops.
Yeah. And that's classic DeBoer. Like, DeBoer's always blamed his goalie at some point.
I was going to say, doesn't that piss you off? As a former goaltender, but I mean, if you're Bressois and Thompson, you're sitting there saying, this guy doesn't have our back.
While
he's praising all of his forwards for shooting 40 horrible shots a night.
They worked their ass off. We worked our asses off, and we just need 5-on-5 play and special teams and a goalie. And today we didn't get one of them.
Right.
Brutal.
And that's this is, I know a lot of people that have seen this before. Good. All right. I've seen enough. Blame the goalie. And I mean, it happened in San Jose. Johan Hedberg, goalie coach, got fired early. There's
fired a goalie coach the second he got here.
And it's because it's total control, So it's a great point. If you're not going to play defense, and there's some people that will always think their defense is fine no matter what. It's just they're not getting saves. That's just how it works. And when you look at Tampa or whoever else you want, even like St. Louis when they went on their run, Bennington was making saves just at a crazy level.
Let's be honest,
in New York. He got pulled last night, but Jesus, he's been good.
Last year in the playoffs, they were losing low-scoring games. It wasn't they were losing 6-4; they were losing 2-1.
Yep, and the power. We didn't even talk about the power play. We're not going there. It just sucks.
I mean, Eichel's good. Eichel's entries are freaking unbelievable. One of these days, I'll get around to making a video on that. I'm just going to roll a video of him taking the puck and entering all by himself. It's unreal.
Make sure you get the video though, him circling around the net because he loves doing that.
Can I transpose it over Cody Eakin also doing that, and then we can debate who's better at hockey? We were going to wrap up on this. The team is in a bit of trouble in regards to making the playoffs. I ran the numbers yesterday. They effectively need somewhere in the 650 range to get to 93 points. A lot of the other teams need basically a point per game to hit 93. They're probably actually not only going to need to win the games themselves. I think they're also going to need some help. Someone's going to have to shit themselves. I don't think it matters who it is, but someone's going to have to do it. So I put the question up today, and I'll put it back up again. Will the Golden Knights make the playoffs this season? 78% of the 4,100 votes say no, they will not. 78% on a team that just traded for cap space. They actually bought at the deadline. I know it didn't look like that because they tried to give a player away, but this team bought at the deadline. 78%, and this is diehard Golden Knights fans that follow us.
How about this? The day before Jack Eichel's debut in Vegas, the Golden Knights had an 89.5% chance of making the playoffs. And now they're down to a 36.7%.
The day they traded for him, it was probably 95.
Yeah. So
in all fairness, I did vote yes. I'm sticking with it because they'll find a way down the stretch. There's some big games that they can steal at the end. That Dallas game is going to be important. So
Edmonton,
I'm gonna teams like that will bail them out, and I think they sneak in.
Maybe I don't think see it. Well, part of it's gonna be tough because I mean, is Eichel going to keep playing center? Is he going to play forward? Is he going to play wing? What's his hand like? I know he's hurting
center, but won't take draws. I think that's getting better.
Yeah,
block shots again, causing injuries to stars. I mean, how many more stars in this team have to get hurt by blocking a shot, an unnecessary regular season shot? I'm sorry, Mike. I know it's a hockey thing, but DeBoer's non-negotiable blocking shot theory is just not working out this year.
It has hurt some players, but it'll be interesting. I'm really curious to see. I'm curious to see what the lines look like because they were pretty stable. Then they were in a blender last game. I don't know what to expect with anything with that.
Carlson can't be a winger anymore. It has to be over. It didn't work. It was never going to work. It doesn't work. You're better off with Stevenson there, and I still don't even like that idea. You don't have enough wingers, just play wingers up there. Like, give Will Carrier the shot, I guess. Like, all right, I have been against that for the most part, but you know what? You got to have your centers. You've got 4 decent centers. Like, play them.
That's why they got them. So.
That's why you bought your centers. Yeah, I am still on the yes. Part of my reason on the yes is I actually think they're going to win tomorrow. And I think that's going to turn some things around a little bit, because if they were to win tomorrow, then you go to Chicago and then you go to Seattle twice. They're 2 of the worst teams in the NHL. These are bad teams that just sold. Like, there is no Marc-Andre.
They haven't gotten better.
Right? Like, they can win 4 games in a row right now if they win this. If they do that, all of a sudden the sky turns a little bluer. The clouds go away a little bit. I still will say, like, it's 60% that they don't make it, but I like the schedule enough still that I do believe they can find a way. I didn't think they were going to beat Florida. They did. I wasn't sure they were going to beat LA. They did. Road games, you lose them both. I don't think it's the end of the world. They got 4 points in the last 4 games. They got through it. Now you have to make hay. It's time. You've got to win this one. I think this Nashville game is massive.
What if they move Dadonov tomorrow and they lose out on depth scoring?
Yeah, well, what if they play Dadonov and he just cruises around like Sean Avery circa 2012? Like, honestly, there's a lot of what ifs with him, man. Like,
yeah, you kind of mentioned that earlier in the show, and like, I really hadn't considered that. And the more that I do think about that, the more that I think that actually is somewhat possible.
I mean, he's disappeared before in his career,
and he's disappeared when trying not to disappear. Imagine what he'll disappear when he's trying to disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
So they're going to make it. So fans, they're going to make it. I got your back.
Pretty confident.
I don't see it right now. I think they're in big trouble. I wouldn't count it out because the Pacific is just insane. I think it really rests on Edmonton. If Edmonton just goes down the hole, then I think Vegas still has a chance.
I mean,
tomorrow night against
Edmonton's 500. They need to go 500. They need to have a 500 points percentage to get to 93 points.
Yeah, who knows with that team?
So you're saying they would have to be worse than 500, because Vegas is not getting too far over 93. I think their absolute peak right now is probably 96. So if Edmonton plays 540, which is not even a playoff level, they're in, and Vegas is out. And you
guys realize that the Golden Knights are behind Winnipeg right now, and Winnipeg has 2 games in hand.
They are.
Like, that's what I mean, man. Like, this is messy. Like,
they have 3 games coming up against Vancouver. Like, it might be you have to go 3 for 3 in that. I think 5 points. You're going to have to get 5 points in those 3 games against Vancouver, because if you drop points to Vancouver, you've got another team in the mix. And now when these teams start playing each other, the winner screws you either way. See that game last night. Actually, both the games last night. LA beat Nashville, was bad no matter which way that game went. Dallas beat Edmonton, bad no matter which way that game went. There's going to be more of those. And neither of those games went to overtime, which was massively fortunate for the Golden Knights.
Yep. Well, every time Nashville gets their ass kicked, they come back and are pretty good. So I think they're in trouble against Nashville.
You're playing
the Hawks
in that game.
I'm not I think.
I mean, isn't 5 straight starts for Thompson or whatever it is?
I mean, dude, Thompson just played 2 in a row back to back, man. Like, and coming home, I think you're playing Brossoit. Like, I think that's who it's going to be. I mean, he's still the guy you're paying $2.5 million.
He is.
And, like, somewhere he's supposed to be able to perform, and he has previously. So I think it's Brossoit, and you may see a rotation. I don't even know what to expect from now when it comes to goalies, but the goalies don't matter to me. I really don't. Maybe it's Leonard. It could be.
Could be Leonard. I don't know. And then like another one, they talked about health. I am pleading the Golden Knights. If you are listening, please make Kelly McCrimmon available tomorrow. Please make that happen, because it's going to get super awkward when I start asking Pete DeBoer questions that I know he can't answer, just so he has to say that's a Kelly question, so then I can respond. I'd love to speak to him. Please, let's avoid this. This is my plea to the Golden Knights right now. I think they knew that was the case anyway, but I'm asking them to do it in a public forum now. Thanks to the Jimerson Law Firm for sponsoring Goalie Interference every single week. We will be back. Are we back next Wednesday or are we back next Thursday? I'll have to look at the schedule here.
We got a game on Wednesday, and
we are back next Thursday. Oh, I will be in Seattle when we are back.
You know what?
You get much of me depending on where we are.
I'm flying to Dallas on Thursday, so we may have to reschedule this maybe for a Tuesday or something. What do you think?
Let's do it Tuesday.
Let's do it Tuesday.
Special.
All right. So we just decided that on the fly right
Tuesday, there. Taco Tuesday.
Coming up on Tuesday. We will be doing it on Tuesday next week. And thanks.
Yeah, send Mike your tacos, please.
Yeah, we will do that.
Send me tacos. I had fried chicken for dinner. I'm coming back to Vegas whenever somebody pays for it. So
nice. And thanks.
If they make playoffs, let's hope they make playoffs.
Jimerson for talking me through a lot of this Dadonov stuff and contract stuff and how they would potentially know. We went through a lot of different things. I've been on the phone with Jim for quite a while, and I think it gave me a lot of perspective that went a long way in the last couple of days. So I appreciate that. And of course, for sponsoring this show and allowing us. Somebody said that they wish that Mike was back on the pregame and the postgame. I don't. Because I'm happy that you're with us. Because if you were, you wouldn't be with us. So I am very happy that you are not. So that is good for us. That's it. You got anything else? Parting shots?
Oh, I'm just very happy to be here. And I would also like to thank Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm, who's been very kind to us in supporting this show. Please, everybody, if you're ever in legal trouble, contact Jim Jimerson. And I truly hope, honestly, that things go better. I know this was a negative show, and it was a complete shitstorm for the last couple of days here. But I always truly mean this when I say it. I hope fans have something to cheer for here before we reconvene next Tuesday.
That would be great.
Mike, have you fully read your contract with SinBin, or are there any limitations?
Oh yeah, I put it through my lawyer. We did. We're clear on it. Somebody asked me today to dig up an old standard players contract, and I might have one, but it would be outdated. It wouldn't be the current CBA anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. And I didn't have anything fun in my contracts anyway. I was a plug, so.
Well, I guess we're going out on that. Good night to the plug and everyone else.